My name is Matt Edwards. I'm a performance, museum and exhibition designer. My dad was a carpenter, so I've learned skills from a very early age, from when I was a child, working with him on different buildings. That awareness of space has always been with me. I've really loved it. I've loved working with tools and creating paint effects. It was a combination of these skills and this knowledge that led me into performance design as a career. I recently worked on a production called In the Winter Wood at Polka Children's Theatre. It tapped in straight away with all my knowledge of working with my father, the skills of working with wood and nature as well. And I think this is a really good example of the collaborative process. Costumes for In the Winter Wood were inspired by really a Norwegian or Eastern European workwear. Very heavy, very textured, hard wearing, quite simple shapes. When I then took this idea to Annie, the costume maker, I had selected some fabrics with a bit of texture, but they were pretty thin. And Annie straight away knew that they weren't going to achieve the shapes that I was looking for or hold the ripples on the shoulder piece.
I went trolling around the shops and met you in the one that I thought was the best one I could find. It was exactly the right sort of colour. It was a heavy linen, so I bought everything they had. And then when I got it back to work and realised that I wasn't going to be able to get both dresses out of it, so we talked about a different colour for a drape that goes on the dress and the band around the bottom, so I suggested to Matt whether we could actually use that colour for the bodice and then cut the sleeves and the skirt out in the linen of the colour that we really liked. I think they look good. The colours go together really well as well.
We wanted the children to feel like they were taking the journey into the wood and being lost and then coming out into an enclave and then experiencing these wonderful stories.
It was just such a fantastically different way of seeing the space. It was really exciting. So I remember thinking the most important thing is just to get behind this wholeheartedly, because it's a really exciting kernel of an idea. But from the very offset, to look at what the practical issues that's going to bring.
I very ambitiously wanted to use real birch log throughout the whole of the set. We wanted that texture, we wanted the smell as well, even down to using wood chipping on the floor. But in terms of safety and in terms of strength and structural integrity of the set, we decided eventually to use false logs, then worked over with muslin and idendon and then fantastic paint effects.
There was a system with himself and Safwa and Ellie and Sophia, who are all working various stages of scrimming these things, adding really lovely texture and knots to it. As soon as I saw him add a knot and cover it in muslin and it took shape, I could see that it was going to work.
I definitely wanted from the start the set to be a neutral base, a backdrop really, but I wanted that to all be a wood effect. Obviously that relates to In the Winter Wood, the title, but also that feeling of being lost within a wood. What was lovely was then collaborating with Annie, the costume maker, and Clancy, the lighting designer, and that's where we all decided that that would be the time to introduce colour, to bring the life, if you like, of the forest in with the costumes, so with the performers and with the lighting. With sound, we had an amazing composer, Silva Sepp, who works in Estonia with natural materials, even down to listening to how the wood sounds and hearing the creaks. He uses tiny sticky mics and you can hear the creaking and the noise and the sap within the wood itself. And that's what he gets really excited about. I think it's really important to create an open, flexible environment where everyone feels that they can contribute and that they will be listened to. I think because I've done all of these skills, I've learned how to build sets, to paint floors. I've worked as a stage manager, I've changed gels inside lights, created work on soundboards, I've worked on lighting desks. So I understand what all of the knowledge and the experience people have, and I can have a two-way dialogue with those people. I can believe in what they say, they can see that I understand what they're saying. I think that's really important. And then we can work as a team in a very secure, open environment.
And the reason why I wanted to work with Matt is because he seemed to really want to understand the difference between working with story and working with theatre. The storyteller has to be able to share the story in a more upfront way with the designer so that they can bring the story to life, if you like, through the set and through the costume. So it's more of an organic relationship, and Matt gets that.
I think it's a feeling you often have where everything comes together. It may not go perfectly straight away, you may have to make adjustments, but that you have to be open to that dialogue you have with the other team members, and that eventually, as it did with in the Winterwood, you get that feeling that everything's coming together, everything's working right, and which is why it's a very good example of the collaborative process.